إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيبنا محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وأحبابه وأتباعه وعلى كل من اهتدى بهديه واستنى بسنته واختفى أثره إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد فسبحانك اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي ثم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Today is Monday, the 26th day of Zulhijjah. It's 1443, and it's also the 25th day of July 2022. And this is our lesson number 14 in our book Fiqhus Seerah, a publication of Sheikh Professor Zaid Abdul Karim Zaid. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to grant him goodness. In our previous lessons, we read about Rada'atuhu sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the breastfeeding of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and we got to hear that the first to breastfeed him was his mother for a couple of days, 3 to 7 days, and then a freed servant of Abu Lahab also breastfed him until he got to the tribe of Banu Sa'ad under the care of Halimatu Sa'adiyya. And we saw that Halimatu Sa'adiyya herself was quite hesitant to take the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when she heard that he's an orphan. And we got to hear some of the miracles that occurred with Khadija and Halima Sa'adiyya when she picked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then the barakah, the blessings that she saw in her life and in the life of her family. So she requested from his mother, after the elapsement of the 2-year period, she wanted extra time. She wanted an addition for her to take the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam back to her people and continue to take care of him and enjoy the blessings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In our previous lessons, when we were mentioning the blessing, the barakah that Halimatu Sa'adiyya enjoyed, we made mention that the camel she came with from her village to Mecca was quite weak. The authentic narration, I think I mistakenly said camel. It is not a camel, it is a female donkey. It is a donkey, not a camel. It is a donkey, not a camel. The narration says Atan, and Atan is a female donkey. When I was playing back the video or the audio, I mistakenly said a camel instead of a donkey. So that is the point of correction here. Because camels are for the rich and powerful. A person has to be powerful before they can own a camel. But as for donkeys, it is quite easier as compared to a camel. So I know probably someone might think, okay, you are here saying the woman was poor, how come she owns a camel? But the authentic narration is that the woman came with a female donkey. And then we saw the blessings attached to the blessings she enjoyed, because the donkey, the lips is quite familiar with, comfortable with camels. That is why. We saw that she came with this very old donkey, and she was the last to even get to Mecca. That is why all the other women were able to get children to breastfeed, and she didn't. And at the end of the day, she just had to be patient and take the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam like that. And when they were going back, the people were even asked her, is this the same donkey you came with? Because she realized the donkey is now strong, it's now healthy, and then it is even leading them on their way back home. And we said that from this incident, taking the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from Mecca to the tribe of Banu Sa'ad, so that he would enjoy life there, he would be brought up there, he would receive his training and his upbringing there. We realized that from amongst the Ashraf, the big men of the Arabs at that time, that is what they normally do. And then we concluded by saying, what are some of the lessons we can derive from this incident, since that is the main theme of the book, lessons from the Seerah. Point number 1, أن في رضاعته صلى الله عليه وسلم في البادية بعيدا عن المدينة تجنبا للأوبئة. His upbringing, or the upbringing of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the village, far from the city life, helps a person or helps the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to stay away from viral infections. واستفادة من مناخ البادية الصحي, and he also gets to enjoy the healthy weather conditions of the villages. خاصة وأن مكة في ذاك الوقت يفد إليها الكثير من جميع أجناس الناس للحج, because at that time Mecca was a place that a lot of people from almost every walk of life, they troop and then they gather and then they go to Mecca. Some of them come for Hajj, was ziyara, some of them come for mere visiting, wa tijara, some come for business reasons, wa ghayriha and other reasons, mimma yaj'aluha mu'arradatan lil awbiyati akthar min ghayriha, because Mecca at that time was a place that its doors was widely opened and a lot of people for various reasons trooped to Mecca. Mecca at that time was prone to diseases, was prone to sicknesses. So if a child should be brought up in that environment, there's a high tendency that that child might also be affected by those sicknesses. But if the child is brought up in the villages where the number is few, you even know how the village life is. When people are in a village and then a stranger walks in, the moment a stranger comes to a village, everyone knows this person is not from this town. The moment you set foot in a village and then you are a foreigner, they know. Why? Because the households are limited and they know each other. So when they see a different face, they are able to detect. So growing up in the village for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and for the kids of the affluent Arabs at that time was for them to be protected from sicknesses that are prone to affect them when they grow up in the cities. ولذلك ينصح المربون بالاهتمام بصحة الطفل. It is for this sake that those who are in charge of the upbringing of children are advised to be very, very careful and particular about the health of the children. As parents, let's be very, very mindful and very, very concerned about the health of our kids. وَالْخُرُوجُ بِهِ إِلَى الْخَلَاءِ وَالْهَوَاءِ الطَّلْقِ. And once in a while, take the child out. Let the person enjoy fresh air. Our homes today, land is so expensive, land is so scarce. So every small piece of land that at least a young child can use to, walk around, exercise, get to play, get to enjoy the cool breeze, get to enjoy some fresh air, has been sold. So the child has lost that totally. So it is advised that as parents, as guardians, as people who care about the upbringing of their kids and the future generation, it is best you take the child every once in a while to places like this outside so that the child enjoys that fresh air and then that fresh scenery. لما في ذلك من أثر تربوي ونفسي على هذا الطفل في مستقبل حياته. Because doing that, taking the child outside to the outskirts of the town, to the villages, to the countryside, has a very, very important role it plays in the tarbiyah of the child. And in fact, it has a role to play even in the psychological well-being of the child, in his present situation and even in his future. That is why today you realize that the kids born and bred in the villages are much stronger and much healthier than the kids born and bred in the cities. So if you even go to a small village, and probably I know this has happened to some of you, if not all of you, you meet someone in the village and then you are traveling to that village and then you ask for directions. I want to go to this place. I want to go to the chief's palace, for instance. Then the person tells you, oh, it is just here. Just here of the village child is different from just here of the... Yes. He tells you just here. You walk for 2 hours and he tells you, oh, we are almost there. He tells you when you take the next junction, you will get there. But by the time you get to the next junction, you would have walked for about 6 or 7 kilometers. And he tells you it is just here. Because for him, he's healthy, he's strong, he can walk that distance without feeling anything, without even thinking of saying that, without even feeling that they've done something serious. But those of us who are not used to walking those lengthy distances, we feel as though that is a burden, that is a problem for us. And this is a side note. To those of us who have ever fasted in places like Niger or probably in northern Nigeria, we know how fasting and how severe the weather there is. But a person who has been born and bred here in Ghana, for instance, or Cote d'Ivoire or Togo, enjoying this, our weather is mashallah, the weather is good, the weather is okay, we don't experience the heat. If you carry one of us and then you take them to Niger and tell the person to fast Ramadan or to fast an optional fast in Ramadan, wallahi, they will run and come back. Because they cannot bear the heat, they cannot bear that situation. But a person who is used to fasting in Niger, when he comes to Ghana, one of my fathers, when he came to Ghana, wallahi, he said, if a Ghanaian does not earn Jannah through fasting, Allah should punish him severely. If a Ghanaian does not attain Jannah through fasting, Allah should really punish the person. Because we don't suffer any heat. The highest temperature you experience is what? What is the highest? 30? 35. What is 35? When was the last time you saw 35? Have you ever seen 35? That is the highest you experience. And when you see that 30, 32, you are screaming and shouting. Saying 30 degrees, subhanallah, today, oh, the normal temperature is 27, 29. That is what you normally experience. But last Ramadan, the minimum we experienced in Niger, the minimum region, my region was Niamey. And when you travel to Agadez and Arlit, it is much more intense than Niamey. In Niamey, the minimum we experienced last Ramadan was 45. So if a person is used to fasting in that region and he comes to Accra, he might even pray Isha and he has even forgotten that he's even fasting. So it is the same thing here. So if a person grows up in the countryside, they grow up in the villages, because of how life is there, they become tough, they become strong. So when they are brought into the city life, they are able to what? Assimilate and then accommodate the life of the city. So it is from amongst the wisdom of these wealthy and affluent Arabs to take their kids and their children to the countryside, so that the person grows up a healthy life and then the person becomes strong and healthy as well. ولذلك, okay, we made mention of this point. وكثير من الأمراض وبخاصة النفسية منها إنما يعاني منها أبناء المدن الذين تضيق بهم المساكن. And today, from amongst the sicknesses that we experience, especially psychological sickness, emotional sickness, are sicknesses that most of the kids of the city suffer. The depression, the depressed life. You hardly hear of a villager committing suicide. Do you hear that? A person from the village committing suicide. Why? But today, come to our cities. We see ourselves to be civilized. We see ourselves to be, much more educated than those in the villages. But those in the cities are the ones committing suicide, killing themselves, taking drugs. Why? Because they want to put that pressure under control. Because الَّذِينَ تَضِيقُ بِهِمُ الْمَسَاكِنِ, because even the places that they live in, their homes, their lives are all compact. They all live in, very, very tight environments. Look at our homes, subhanallah. Look at the kind of lives we are living here. Small piece of land, they will not let it rest. Somehow will force and fix something there. All these things block the free passage of air. Even fresh air you don't get. One of my brothers says that, Sheikh, You, those people in Kaswa, you are enjoying. Why? Because Kaswa, mashallah, air flows, air passes through. But those of us living in Nima New Town, by the time the air passes through the lungu, the corners, and then by the time it gets to your window, the strength and then the power of that fresh air is now weak. So you won't even enjoy it. Your window is right by the roadside where weed smokers are seated. So if you open your window for fresh air, it is another weed air that enters, not fresh air. So you keep it closed. And when you keep it closed, there is no proper ventilation. Do you see the problem now? الَّذِينَ تَضِيقُ بِهِ الْمَسَاكِنِ وَيُهْمِلُهُمُ الْآبَاءُ. And the kids of the cities, the fathers mostly neglect those kids. Why? Because it is daybreak, the father has put on his suit, he's gone to work. There is no father-child relationship. But in the villages, the farm is close to the house. Even if the farm is far, yes, it is just for a couple of months, yes. The moment the child learns how to walk, when the father is going to the farm, what do? They carry the child along. So there is always that father-child relationship that those from the villages get, that those in the cities do not get. فَلَا يَخْرُجُونَ بِهِمْ حَيْثُ تَنْشَرِحُ النَّفْسِ. So these fathers, because their schedules are so tight, they do not have time for their kids, then they never get the opportunity to go out with the kids, to go on outings with the kids, and take them places, تَنْشَرِحُ النَّفْسِ, places that will let the mind and then the soul of the child rest and then even expand and then get to explore. وَتُجَدِّدُ الْهَوَىٰ. And the weather, the air around the child should be renewed constantly. وَتَنْتَعِشُ الْحَيَاةِ مَعَهُمْ. And life becomes lively with them. Some of us are alive, but our lives are not lively. Our lives are not alive. We live a dead life. Our lives are just triangles. From home to the workplace to what? So get something else and then back to the home. That's it's nothing. Or the masjid, yani, as a good Muslim. So let's say the home, the workplace, the masjid. Home, workplace, masjid. Triangle. That is the only thing you do. When you take these three out of your life, you realize there is nothing interactive, there is nothing interesting in your life. Nothing. And do not be thinking that because I'm Muslim, then going out to enjoy fresh air, going on outings is haram. It is never haram. It is not haram. Every once in a while, after praying Isha with the wife at home, mashallah, let her put on the hijab, beautiful. You go out with her. You walk together, enjoy fresh air, and then you come back home. It doesn't just energize you and then give you strength. It renews the love. It renews the relationship. Every once in a while, Eid day, when there is no serious fitna, there is no serious musiba going on at the beaches, you take the kids. You let them go. Family day outing. There are parks around. Take them. Let them change scenery. It really helps. وَالتَّرْبِيَةُ الْمُعَاصِرَةُ الْيَوْمِ تُنَادِي. Even modern day child upbringing. You know, people say they've learned. So they are now civilized, they are now educated. They want to talk about child upbringing. I think that it's called pedagogy, something like that. Child upbringing, how to bring up a child. He says, modern day tarbiyah says, or it calls to بأهمية قيام الأطفال برحلات إلى الريف. The importance of going out, having excursions, taking the kids out إلى الريف, to the countrysides, waljibal, to mountainous areas. If you have the means, once in a while, your son has never seen the highest mountain in Ghana, take them to Afaja to let them climb the mountain. If they can. If they can't, at least they've seen that scenery, they've seen that environment, they've seen how it is. That alone expands how they think. If you always look into a bottle, okay, If you always look into your bottle, your sight would always be limited to that bottle. But when you are used to seeing the vast plains, the sea, the oceans, the desert, the forest, seeing that vast environment, seeing that vast area has a psychological impact upon you. You also begin to think wide. Your thought process is not always limited. You begin to think wide. Not just that, wasuhul walwidian, and taking them to plain areas and then taking them to valleys, yani mountainous areas as well. فذاك نافذة لتفتح الذهن والذكاء. So this is a window, taking the children out for them to expand their scope, for them to see the countryside. All these things help in opening the child's mind and then heightening the child's intelligence. When we're in secondary school, those kids who attended the government schools from the villages, when they came, their intelligence cannot be compared to those who grew up in the cities. And some of us even wondered, how come? This guy went to Saito. And we went to the preparatory school, that's how it's called, right? Yeah. We went there. But how come these guys are the ones leading us? Why? Because they had the opportunity of seeing life, of seeing that scenery, and that also helps in opening a person's mind. You can try that for yourself and then see. وَتَذُكِرَ أَنَّ عَبْدُ الْمَلِكِ بن مروان كان يقول. It is reported that Abdul Malik bin Marwan was one of the khulafa of the Umayyad dynasty, Banu Umayyah. Abdul Malik bin Marwan, he used to say that أَضَرَّ بِنَا حُبُّ الْوَلِيدِ. Our love for Walid has really harmed us. Walid is his son. So Abdul Malik is saying that the love that we showed Walid, that love really harmed us and caused us problems. لأن الوليد كان لحانا. Because Walid, the love that we gave him, the love that we showed him, Walid grew up to be a man with a faulty tongue. Whatever he says, whatever he opens his mouth to say, either mistakes or things that are not supposed to come out of his mouth. He says things, to him they are normal, but in reality, those things are probably insults. Because of the love that they showed Walid. وَكَانَ سُلَيْمَانَ فَصِيحًا. But Sulaiman, the younger brother of Walid, came out to be very, very eloquent. And you see why. لِأَنَّ الْوَلِيدَ, because Walid أَقَامَ مَعَ أُمِّهِ, because Walid grew up with his mother. His mother was the only person who took care of the upbringing of Walid. So Walid grew up, and the only thing he knows is what he learned from his mother. وَسُلَيْمَانُ وَغَيْرُهُ. And Sulaiman and the others, من إخوته, from his brothers, سَكَنُوا الْبَادِيَةِ. They grew up in the villages. And in the villages, there is nothing like, this is my mother, this is my father. Everyone is your mother, everyone is your father, right? So you gather experiences from everyone. So they grew up in the villages, فَتَعَرَّبُوا, and then the Arabian life entered them. They became correct Arabs because their accent of the Arab became so pure. Because in the villages, there are no travelers, there are no businessmen, there are no foreigners in the villages. So they have the local dialect still intact. But those in the towns, those in the cities, they've lost touch of the local dialects. Are we clear? ثُمَّ أُدِّبُوا فَتَأَدَّبُوا. And Sulaiman and his brothers, they were disciplined because they grew up in the villages. They were disciplined, and then they took that discipline and then they put it in their lives. But as for Walid, growing up with his mother alone in the city really had a negative impact on him. This is what his own father Abdul Malik bin Marwan is saying. This really tells us that sometimes the love we show our kids ends up harming them and then harming us in the long run. That is why in the local Asante or in the local Akan dialect, when we say dadaba, is it a positive thing or an insult? It is what? An insult. But what does dadaba mean? The father's child. The father's child. But it is a good thing, right? This is his father's child. But it is a bad thing because we have a feeling that the father has pampered the child and spoiled the child. How should the houses say mama, right? This is his mother's son. That means he grew up in between the legs of the mother. Mommy's boy, yes, that is the word. Thank you. Mommy's boy. So mommy's boy, you would feel that it is praise, but in fact it is an insult. Because that mommy's boy does not know anything. But imagine a child growing up in a family house. His father is here, his 7 uncles are there. All the 7 uncles, 6 of them are married. Maybe the 3 of them are married to 3 wives or 4 wives. So it is a very, very big house. So he learns from his mother, he learns from his auntie, he learns from his uncle, he picks from this. When he's playing with his cousins, some of them will slap him, some are stronger than him, some he's stronger than them. So he's beaten and then he also beats. So all these things give the child experiences in life. It gives the child an insight in life, and then the child knows how to grow up. But if the child grows up in the bungalows, that is why we the Zongo boys are quite tough, you know. Yeah, we are very, very tough. Because we grew up in very, very difficult and tense environments. Beat or you are beaten. That is the motto. When you are beaten and you come home and then you complain, the grandmother will beat you first and then drag you out and take you to that boy who beats you and tells you, fight him back, retaliate. Because my grandson doesn't accept defeat. So if you know that that child is way stronger than you when he beats you, you know when you go back for second round, you cannot win. Before you get home, you wipe your tears and console yourself. So passing through situations like this strengthened us. Now that you have become tough from this life, now your child, no, I don't want him to suffer as I've suffered. Don't worry, he won't suffer like you suffered, but your child will grow up and become a spoiled brat. Your child will become a spoiled child. So spoiled that they cannot even wash for themselves. Today you've hired maid servants, those who wash for you, and they wash for your kids. You've hired a special cook, someone who cooks for you and cooks for the family, so the girl child does not know how to cook. You've hired a gate man, a watchman, to guard your house, so your child is a scared child. Your child is a fiero. You have a very big dog in the house, so the child does not know how to protect himself. So what can the child do for himself? What? Nothing at all. Once in a while, expose the child to that hard life. For them to see that life is not always roses. In fact, when even roses have thorns on them, right? The rose flower has a thorn on it. So yes, life is beautiful, but once in a while there's a thorn that can prick you and then put you back on track. So my expected elders in Islam, this is something we should really think about. Lessons that we can derive from the Prophet ﷺ being taken to the countryside for him to become tough. That is why when the lives of Abu Jahl, the lives of Abu Sufyan before becoming Muslim, the lives of Utbah bin Rabi'ah, Walid bin Mughira, big kuffar, harming him, insulting him, the Prophet ﷺ had grown a tough skin. He had grown a tough skin. So when they insult him, he knows, he's used to it. But imagine if he had grown in Mecca with his mother alone. He's not used to the tough life, and the lives of Abu Jahl insult him. That is when he would enter his room and start crying that he has been insulted. He has been insulted. They place the large intestines of camels upon him whilst praying. He gets up, pushes it aside, and he's patient, and then he continues praying. He's used to the tough life. May Allah grant us goodness. Amen. So that is point number 1. I hope we've taken the lessons. So every once in a while, take the kids out. Take them to the village during vacations. Let them go and then spend a week or a month there. Let them see life without electricity. Let them see life without internet connection. Let them see life without the mobile phone. They would get to value the little that you offer them. They would get to see that. Pizza, and all those things. Let them go and eat mankani. Let them go eat, what is it? Ampesi. Yes, let them eat contemporary. With and things like this. Those things expose them to real life. May Allah grant us the opportunity to do that with the class. Point number 2. إن في خروج هؤلاء الأطفال إلى البادية تعويدا لهم على النطق السليم للغة العربية. The taking of those children out of the city to the villages and to the countrysides, it helps them to speak fluent Arabic. Just as we made mention. It is the same thing even in our own cities here. If you are a typical Ashanti, or if you are a typical Dogomba, or any tribe, and then your child grows up in Accra here, if you don't take time, even if you are a pure Gang, and your child grows up in Accra here, he would grow up not understanding the language. Even here in Accra, your child will grow up not understanding Gang. So once in a while, you carry them and take them to Miami, Ishona, by the seaside, where nothing is spoken but Gang, and let them learn. So that is why these people do that. They take their kids to the villages, so that those villagers who haven't gotten their pure Arab mixed with other languages, they get the opportunity of learning the pure Arabic language from the villages. وَحِمَايَةً لَهُمْ مِنَ اللَّحْنِ فِيهَا. And it also protects the kids from committing mistakes in the Arabic language, and in our context here, from our mother tongues. وهذا يدلنا على مدى اهتمام هؤلاء القوم بلغتهم اللغة العربية. And this tells us how the importance these people gave their language, that is the Arabic language. Because they gave the language so much importance, they are willing to take their kids to the villages to live there and then learn the languages. This tells you how important they've given the Arabic language. But today, what importance are we giving to our languages? Our own mother tongues, what importance are we giving to it? Zero. Or maybe something very, very insignificant. That is what we do. It is said, and I'm yet to confirm it, especially some of our fathers and our mothers from the Yorubas and from the Igbos, because they have some mistakes, or some, I won't call it a mistake, some issues when it comes to pronunciation of certain letters. Even our Gang people have it. 100 instead of 100. He's going to say it, a hit, he says it. Hit the food for me. The Gamma will say what? Eat the food for me. And I heard that this once caused a problem in one of the schools. A friend, very, very hungry, handed his food to his friend. He says, please eat the food for me. Eat. And to him, he wanted to say, heat it for me. So the friend conquered the food, ate everything. After 5, 10, 20 minutes, the guy came back and said, where is my food? He said, I've eaten it. I told you to eat the food. He says, yes, I've eaten it. No, I said, eat it, eat it. He says, yes, I've eaten it. He really wanted to say what? Eat the food, not eat the food. So we have this, that. From our Asantis also have problems with R and L, and R and L. Blano. Something like that. So some tribes, some people, because they do not want their kids growing up making mistakes in English, they deny teaching their children their mother tongue. Because if the child perfects the mother tongue, the R and then the L will become a problem for him. So even if he's speaking English, that R and L problem would show its face in the English language. He won't say blanket, say blanket. Blade, brown blade. The person understands English, but it is because of how the tongue was shaped. So some people, because they want their kids to be perfect in English language, they do not teach their kids their mother tongue. Because they believe that in learning their mother tongue, that child would have that deficiency, as they term it, or as they see it. But these people, the Arabs, really took their languages, or they really took their language, and they still do, even though it is very, very weak and insignificant now, the Arabic language, and we will see why. They have taken their language very, very serious. So serious that they themselves take their kids to the countrysides. وهو درس لنا نحن في المحافظة على اللغة العربية لغة القرآن. So this also becomes a lesson for us to also protect the Arabic language. لغة القرآن, that is the language of the Quran. وسنة النبوية الشريفة, and it is the language of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So as a Muslim, do not sit back and watch the Arabic language die. Because if it dies, it is the language of the Quran. It is the language of the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the hadith. وكان السلف الأمة يحضون على تعلم اللغة العربية كما يحضون على التفقه في السنة وتعلم الفرائض. The Salaf, the righteous predecessors, they encourage themselves and encourage their kids to learn the Arabic language, just as they encourage them in learning the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and then the science of inheritance. So the importance they give fiqh, the importance they give hadith, and the importance they give the knowledge of inheritance is the same importance they give to learning the Arabic language. فقد كتب عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه إلى أبي موسى الأشعري, because Abu Umar رضي الله عنه once wrote a letter to Abu Musa al-Ash'ari saying, أما بعد فتفقهوا في السنة, learn the sunnah. And we say the sunnah, we mean the teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he's telling Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, learn the sunnah, وتفقهوا في العربية, and then learn the Arabic language. وأعربوا القرآن, and then Arabize the Quran. Don't recite or read the Quran as though you are speaking Hausa or Chi or Gan or any other language. فَإِنَّهُ عَرَبِي, because the Quran is Arabic. Today when a Hausa man is reciting the Quran, you know this man is a pure Hausa man. And since it is the Quran, I don't want to cite examples, because the word of Allah Azza wa Jalla is superior. When a Yoruba man is reciting the Quran, you know this is a Yoruba man reciting the Quran. Now, as a Muslim, make sure you recite the Quran in the Arabic fashion, how it is supposed to be recited, not Yoruba or not Hausa or not any other language. You recite it in the Quranic way. So learn it and learn the tajweed. وقال رضي الله عنه أيضا, and Umar also says, تعلموا اللحن والفرائض, learn the science of correcting one's, or learn Arabic grammar basically. Learn Arabic grammar, والفرائض, and then learn the science of inheritance, how to distribute property, how to distribute wealth. And today, this is a very, very important science and knowledge that is almost lost. No, it's not lost. It's still there with those who know. But it is almost lost. Why? Because today when you ask a person very, very basic questions, for instance, okay, I won't point hands, but think now, if you should die now, who are those who are supposed to get something from your inheritance? Do you know? And who are those who are not supposed to enjoy inheritance now, as you are seated here? Not how to distribute it, no, but who are those who are eligible to have a share of my inheritance? Your brothers, your kids, your parents, who? If you have sons, if you have daughters, if you have children, do your brothers have a share in inheritance or not? If you are married to a woman and she dies and she has wealth and she dies now, if she has kids, what is your percentage? What is your share? If she doesn't have kids, what is your share? What is your percentage? If a man dies and then he has kids, what is the percentage of the mother? If there are no kids, what is the percentage of the mother? If the women are 2 or 3 or more than 1, what is their percentage? Is it the same as one woman? These are very, very basic things. Very basic. Inshallah ta'ala, definitely we'll put it in one of our lessons here. Tomorrow, no. If we're exhausting 3 days from the week, right? Wednesday, no, we'll continue with the Seerah. That is, Faraid is a whole different story altogether. Before we start it, if you want us to learn it, then first of all, you have to memorize some verses for me first. You memorize the first verses of Surah An-Nisa. In it, Allah Azza wa Jalla gave the detailed, no, not really detailed, but Allah Azza wa Jalla gave us the formula. So if you memorize them and you know the meanings, and then you know the percentages, and you know the fractions everyone gets, then we can start the lessons. And I know memorizing it will take time, right? May Allah make it easy for us. So Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, Umar radiallahu anhu is saying, learn the Arabic grammar, learn fara'id, the science of inheritance, فَإِنَّهَا مِن دِينِكُمْ, because those things are part of your religion. Arabic language is part of your religion. Learning the science of inheritance is also part of religion. يقول شيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah says, رحمه الله, may Allah Azza wa Jalla be pleased with him and forgive him. فَإِنَّ النَّفْسَ اللغة العربية من الدين. The Arabic language is part of the religion. وَمَعْرِفَتُهَا فَرْضٌ وَاجِبٌ. Learning the Arabic language, listening, is compulsory. Learning the Arabic, فَرْضٌ وَاجِبٌ, is compulsory upon every single one of us to learn the Arabic language. Because you want to make money, you go to school and then you go and memorize some huge business books. Because you want to make money. Banking and finance, some people go as far as learning rocket science. Some go and then they learn computer, machine language, the language of the computer. The person has learned it too. Computer is talking in ones and zeros. The person has learned it. Learning all the computer languages. Why? Because he wants to become a tech savvy, a computer guru. But you want to become a good Muslim and you don't learn the language of the religion. Are we serious? May Allah make us serious then. So he says, learning it, fardun wajibun, is compulsory. Why? فَإِنَّ فَهْمَ الْكِتَابِ وَالسُّنَّةِ fardun wajibun. Because learning and understanding the Quran and the Sunnah is compulsory, right? وَلَا يُفْهَمُ إِلَّا بِفَهْمِ لُغَةَ الْعَرَبِيَّةِ. And there is no way you can understand the Quran and the Sunnah without understanding Arabic. And in Ghana, we have this very, very serious cancer, a very, very serious sickness affecting us, in Ghana specifically. You find someone who does not understand Arabic, but sits in front of us in Ramadan offering tafsir, delivering tafsir lectures, the book of Allah. This very same person offering tafsir, especially now in the age of social media, everyone wants to sit behind the screens. Put that same person down and let the person speak Arabic, good Arabic, for 2 minutes. And the person cannot speak Arabic. He doesn't understand Arabic. But he sits in your presence, puts the book of Allah in his presence, and then what are you doing? Inna tafsiri. He is not doing anything. Let me give you an example of an ayah that if you think that not knowing the Arabic language and not learning the tafsir from the scholars of tafsir, and then you think you can read translations and sit in front of people and joke with the book of Allah, know that you are doing something very, very dangerous to yourself. Something very, very dangerous to the ummah. Allah tells us in an ayah, وَيَوْمَ تَقُومُ السَّاعَةِ يُقْسِمُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ مَا لَبِثُوا غَيْرَ سَاعَةٍ. Is there any problem going there? May Allah grant us goodness. But it is not me.
No, sitting here, what they are reading in Quran is different than what is.
What? And then you sat down for him to do that, right?
No, we expect to fight. Me and my brother.
No, not fight.
It started from Biafra war and those who go to
Yes.
We have person who is reading the Quran. If the person read the Quran, him to translate the Arab.
So he recites the ayah and then he takes a different story. May Allah grant us goodness. Let's come back to our lesson. I was about to cite an example. وَيَوْمَ تَقُومُ السَّاعَةُ يُقْسِمُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ مَا لَبِثُوا غَيْرَ سَاعَةٍ. If you had followed this ayah carefully, وَيَوْمَ تَقُومُ السَّاعَةُ يُقْسِمُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ مَا لَبِثُوا غَيْرَ سَاعَةٍ. One ayah mentioning one word, sa'a sa'a. وَيَوْمَ تَقُومُ السَّاعَةُ يُقْسِمُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ مَا لَبِثُوا غَيْرَ سَاعَةٍ. The sa'a here, the first sa'a and the second sa'a have two different meanings. Two different meanings. Meaning, let me give you the meaning. The meaning basically is وَيَوْمَ تَقُومُ السَّاعَةُ. And when the day of Qiyamah occurs, the first sa'a, it means Qiyamah. يُقْسِمُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ مَا لَبِثُوا غَيْرَ سَاعَةٍ. The evildoers would swear to Allah that they've not lived for an hour. So the second sa'a is just a short time, an hour. And the first sa'a is the day of Qiyamah. Now, if you've not learned this from the scholars of tafsir, you come and stand. وَيَوْمَ تَقُومُ السَّاعَةُ. And sa'a means a watch in Arabic language. Sa'a means time, sa'a means watch, sa'a means an hour. Three meanings. So if you sit in front of the ignorant people and then you want to play with yourself and then play with your akhirah, you say وَيَوْمَ تَقُومُ السَّاعَةُ. And the day the watch stands. Because sa'a means watch. يُقْسِمُ الْمُجْرِمِينَ مَا لَبِثُوا غَيْرَ سَاعَةٍ. The evildoers, and in fact, subhanAllah, lebisu, we have lebisu and lebithu, with sin and with tha, and they have two different meanings. Lebitha, with sa, with tha, ta'u tha'u. Lebitha means what? To stay for a while, to stay for a period of time, or to live for a period of time. Lebisa, with sin, means to wear. So, وَيَوْمَ تَقُومُ السَّاعَةُ يُقْسِمُ الْمُجْرِمِينَ مَا لَبِثُوا, not مَا لَبِثُوا. And because you do not know, you say مَا لَبِثُوا غَيْرَ سَاعَةٍ. You say, or that person, may Allah safeguard us from that behavior. The person says, the day the hour stands, يَوْمَ تَقُومُ السَّاعَةُ, the day the watch stands, the evildoers will swear to Allah that they've never put in on watch. مَا لَبِثُوا غَيْرَ سَاعَةٍ. They didn't put anything besides the watch. And the person tells you he's giving commentary of what? The Quran. Where from watch? Where from watch? This same person who dares sit with the book of Allah and translates, give him book of hadith, Muwatta Malik for instance, Bulugul Maram, Arba'una hadith, just Arba'una hadith. Tell him, sit down, explain Arba'una hadith, he's afraid. He's afraid to explain the book of hadith, and this is hadith. But Quran, he is not afraid. He doesn't fear Allah. He sits with it and then he explains it anyhow. And because we, those who sit and listen, do not get up to learn and expand our scope and become intelligent people, everyone can play with our mind and play with our intelligence. So the problem, yes, it is said that Bera da Sata da Dawa da Wari. If you want to blame the mouse for stealing, don't just blame the mouse alone. Blame the Dawadawa for smelling. Because if the mouse hadn't smelled the scent of the Dawadawa, would it have stolen? No. So because those people see us to be people who make no effort in learning Islam and learning their religion, they can sit in front of us and tell us everything, and deep down they tell themselves, I know these people do not even know I'm even fabricating lies and telling them stories. But if you should sit in the presence of those who know, those who read, those who are students of knowledge, you dare not. When I was coming, I was telling my brother Salu that I sit down every day. This book, I've read it 4 or 5 times. But before sitting in your presence, I have to respect your intelligence. So I go over it again. I read it again. The portion for today's lessons, I read it over and over and over and over again. I go back, English is not our language. Because it is not our language. Every word I look through the dictionaries, confirm the meaning, make sure I'm comfortable with this meaning before speaking with you. Because I respect your intelligence. So you should also respect your intelligence by learning. So that no one will play with your minds. There's something my old man, okay, he says he's not an old man. There's something my father has always been saying, that if you have not learned, if you are not knowledgeable, you are not a fool. If you are not knowledgeable, you've not gone to school, that does not mean you are a fool. Right? No. If not going to school, you've not been privileged. For wisdom and sense, Allah has given you. No. So if someone is vomiting, excuse my language, trash, you are not a fool. No. Use your number 6. Use your number 6. And this religion of ours, and our time is really going, this our religion is very, very delicate. So be very, very careful who you learn from and whom you sit in their presence and listen to. I believe it is Abdullah ibn Mas'udin. He says, Inna hadha al-amra deenun. This knowledge, these lessons that we've been giving and telling each other, deenun, it is our religion. Fanzur amman ta'khuz deenak. So be very, very careful who you take your religion from. It is not everyone you sit in his presence and says, oh, Malan Niyai. Oh, he's an ustad, he's a sheikh, so let me sit with the person and learn. It is not every person you do that with. Look at the person carefully. Be sure you are confident and you are comfortable with the knowledge the person is giving before you sit in their person's presence. If not, you'll be a person who goes to the bush at night to gather grass. The person would gather the grass and gather the leaves and end up gathering a snake alongside. You have to be laid. That is how the Arabs call such a person. You go to the bush at night to gather leaves, no problem. Gather grass, no problem. But a snake might join you and come to your house. So let's be very, very careful. This point, the final point, he says, so learning this religion is compulsory. Learning the Quran and Sunnah is compulsory. And it cannot be understood. That is, the Quran and the Sunnah cannot be understood without understanding the Arabic language. And he brought a qaida, a rule that we made mention of, I believe, in our first or second lesson. Ma la yatimul wajibu illa bihi fahuwa wajibun. Something that cannot be, something that is compulsory. And you cannot do that compulsory thing without something else. That other thing also becomes compulsory. You remember that rule? I even made mention of ablution in relation to salat. Ma la yatimul wajibu illa bihi fahuwa wajibun. If you are told this thing is compulsory to do, but you cannot do that thing unless you do something else. Now that something else also becomes what? Compulsory. A very basic example. Let me give you technical example. I gave you with salat and wudu, with buildings. You want to build a story building. Okay? You want to build a story building. Without foundations and pillars and all those things, would you be able to floor the top and build? So your aim is not the flooring. Your aim is the building on top. Right? But without the flowing, you can't build on top. So flowing now becomes what? Compulsory, and it becomes a part of your plan, whether you like it or not. Do you understand it now? So your aim, your goal is to learn the Quran and the Sunnah. And the Quran and the Sunnah cannot be learned without learning the Arabic. So Arabic also becomes what? Compulsory. Now that is from amongst the things, that is from amongst the wisdom why these people take their children to the countryside or the villages to learn. And final point, we are calling Imam Shatibi. Imam Shatibi says about the Quran and in Quran, فَمَنْ أَرَادَ تَفَهُّمَهُ. Anyone who wants to understand the Quran, فَمِنْ جِهَةِ لِسَانِ الْعَرَبِ يُفْهَمْ. It is from amongst, or it is through the Arabic language that the Quran can be understood. ولا سبيل إلى تطلب فهمه من غير هذه الجهة. And there's no way you can ever understand the Quran if you don't understand the Arabic language. Yes, you can read the translation, but the person wrote the translation based on what he understood. And translations are prone to mistakes and errors. Yes. Sometimes you read and you don't understand. We ask Allah Azza wa to grant us goodness, and then we'll conclude here for time's sake, and then we'll continue inshallah ta'ala in our in subsequent khutbahs. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.